Amanda and I both got the ARC for this, Rouge by Mona Awad, author of Bunny, which I also wanted to read. Unfortunately, I did not. And I noticed two quotes as soon as you go into start. Because what is the face? What finally is the skin over the flesh, a cover, a disguise, rouge for the insupportable horror of our living nature, by Elena Ferrante. And through the hourglass I saw you, in time you slipped away, when the mirror crashed I called you, and turned to hear you say, take my breath away, which is a song from the 80s by Berlin. Pretty cool start to this. I'm excited, so come along for the journey.
Hello friends, I am sitting down about to relax and start reading Rouge. If you watched our August TBR, you'll know that I do not know much about this book. All I know is that it's about the cosmetic industry, and it's written by Mona Awad, which is the author of Bunny, which is a very popular book, but I have not read it. I have heard mixed reviews about Bunny. I've heard some people say that they like the book. Some people say they read it but have no idea what they read. Some people did not like the book. So we will see how this one goes. And let's get to it. So it says here, it talks about Mona Awad and her books and some of the prizes they've won and what's been said about them. And then it says in Rouge, a wildly imaginative gothic fairy tale about a young woman, Belle, whose investigation into her mother's sudden death reveals a perilous obsession with beauty and youth, one that mirrors her own and leads her on a fantastical beauty journey with deadly stakes. So there you go. There is the cosmetic industry aspect. And now I know a little bit more about what I'm going to read. There's no chapter. There's no chapter 1 at the top of this. Is that a prologue? Oh. So I guess maybe this is a prologue, and then there's a part 1, chapter 1. Okay. All right, let's just do it. Let's read.
I'm only 30 pages in, but I wanted to record a little bit because I loved a lot of how this was being set up. And I love the main character, Belle, and you see her as a little girl being read fairy tales, and she loved them so much that she said her mother even knew them to recite them because she read them so much to her daughter. And her mother, Noelle, was even giving her a hard time for wanting to know these so much and have them read to her so much. And I feel like it's very much saying how much little girls buy into the fairy tales and how girls are presented in literature and beauty. And they even make a play on her name of Beauty and the Beast. Her name is Belle. And her father, I guess, is Middle Eastern, and they were talking about how she didn't feel like she was as beautiful as her mother because she had some of her father's genes. And they're really setting it up at how much beauty and how everyone looks and maintains themselves can just be insidious when they're younger and feeling like they need to be a certain way. And her mother very much subscribes to the beauty myth, I guess you would call it, and has a lot of creams and things to make herself look young. But you then cut to when she is older and her mother dies, and you don't know much so far. I'm only 30 pages in, so I think there's going to be a lot more meat to this. I think there's definitely going to be things tied to the beauty industry in terms of what may have contributed to her mother's death. But I really loved the scene at the beginning of her mother reading her fairy tales and everything that I was thinking the author was probably trying to set up with this book. So just a few thoughts, and I'm only 30 pages in, but I already am like, okay, I want to read more.
I just finished the first little segment before you get to part 1. I guess it'd be like the prologue of the book, but it's not labeled that. So anyways, it's the prologue. And you're following Belle and her mother, and Belle is waiting for her mom to come in and read her a story. And Belle always chooses a version of Snow White. So the mom already has this memorized, and she's like sitting at this vanity and she's looking in the mirror and brushing her hair as she's reciting the story. And you get the feeling that although the mom is telling the story of Snow White to Belle, it's from the point of view of kind of the evil queen. And so she's sort of saying it as if like she's saying it. So like she feels like the evil queen, like she's kind of vain sounding, and like she, you know, the worst thing that the mirror can say when she does mirror, mirror on the wall, the worst thing it can say is that someone's younger and prettier than she is. So you're kind of getting a sense of who these characters are and how they sort of view themselves, at least from the mom's point of view. Belle, again, is a little girl, so she doesn't quite get everything going on, and she likes to hear the story about beauty and the beautiful princess and a land far away, but she doesn't really understand yet what her mom is thinking and what's in her mom's head. I just finished chapter 1, and in chapter 1 you are taken forward in time to 2017, I think is the year, or 2016. 2016. So you're transported to year 2016, and Bella is all grown up, living as an adult on her own, away from her mother. Her mother lived around San Francisco, and Bella moved to Montreal to sort of have her own life. But when she's working one day, she gets a call from the police, and her mom is found dead. Her mom, according to the police, was out for a stroll, and she fell off of a cliff and landed on some jagged rocks by the ocean. So she takes a flight back home to go for the funeral and finish up all of the loose ends that her mom left behind, including a business that her mom owned. Her mom owned a dress shop, and she's in a party. They call it a party for the funeral, but they're in a party, and there's people that she's meeting that she's never known and kind of speaking with, talking about her mom. And you kind of get the feeling, like I kind of feel like her mother might have committed suicide and jumped because she couldn't take getting older. So she couldn't take seeing like wrinkles or, you know, veins under her skin or age marks or whatever her mother felt was ugly on her, because you find out, you know, at least my impression so far is that her mother's very vain. I just get the feeling that she may have actually killed herself. And Bella, who you learn her full name is Mirabella, and as an adult she's going by Mira. Mira is kind of following in her mom's footsteps. She's obsessed with watching these beauty videos that talk about like how to take care of your neck and your face and all these serums. And when she packed her bags to go to her mom's funeral, she actually packed hardly anything, just a whole bunch of bags of skin products. So she packed like 7 Ziploc bags of different skin products or something, it said. So so far the book is going pretty good. It's been fairly easy to read, and right now I'm understanding everything that's going on. So only at the end of the first chapter, but we will see where the rest takes us.
All right, I am over 100 pages in, and I'm getting very disappointed and confused because I'm having a hard time push through. it's just very confusing. And I noticed that it described it as Snow White meets Eyes Wide Shut. And I saw the movie with Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. And I know it was a really confusing movie, and it delves into like the seedier side where Tom Cruise keeps going down into sides of people in terms of the sex parties and everything that goes on behind the scenes with the elite. I think it was in New York. And I know this is I think I'm spiraling down into the seedier side of beauty, I guess, is basically like the beauty industry. But all that's happening so far is Belle had these pair of red shoes that kind of found her, and then they directed her, like pretty much had her go to this house, this glass house on a cliff, and she met a lot of strange people who kept stroking her face. And then she woke up and she was in her bed. She didn't know how she got back, and she ended up there again. And it's very dreamlike. So I'm trying to push through. I'm hoping it gets better and makes a little more sense of at least what's going on. But maybe that's the point. I don't know. So that's my 100-page update. And one more thing that I noticed on the back that I have to text Amanda about. There's a review on the back. And it's a review of the author of the book that she and I very famously, well, between us, we both really hated. And I was like, no, I hope that's not a bad sign. But I'm going to take a quick camera shot of it, and I'm going to text her it. So let's hope it gets better, though. Let's hope maybe it'll get better. Maybe that's not a bad sign. We'll see. All right, on the back is a quote from the author of I'm Thinking of Ending Things. Unsettling, whimsical, and moving, Rouge is an authentic, innovative kind of narrative magic that's both surreal and absolute. A striking novel of incandescence and heart. Let's hope I agree with him at the end. I wanted to do an update further down the rabbit hole with Rouge. I am over halfway with this. I just stopped before part 4. And I wanted to share some more thoughts. I probably will finish the book before doing another video. At least I think I will, unless something really crazy happens that I want to record about. It's still confusing. I don't exactly know everything that's going on. There are a lot of male characters that I keep losing track of or not really knowing who they are. And I keep thinking maybe I'll find out. There's a lot of imagery and a lot of mirrors keep popping up, and I know that I'm sure that the author is trying to say something with that. And the phrase popped into my head as I was reading this, that beauty is only skin deep. And I feel like because this was supposed to be, at least I thought it was supposed to be like a scathing look at the beauty industry and how women are set up to need all of these different essential items basically to look a certain way to be considered beautiful. And Belle really thinks her mom is beautiful, and a lot of people comment on how her mom is beautiful. And I feel like Belle tries to live up to that image and doesn't necessarily think she herself is beautiful. But the whole chunk that I just read last night was about a flashback. At least I think it's a flashback because I am confused still. That when she's younger and she sneaks into her mom's closet because she's obsessed with not just like the creams and the makeup and the shoes and the dresses, but the mirror. And there's this really strange scene that she thinks she sees Tom Cruise, but Tom Cruise tells her that he's someone named Seth. And she like falls in love. And I think it's at that age where you're starting to become more aware of your sexuality and what you're attracted to. And I think the author's saying something with that. So the chunk I was reading, she is going over about this Tom Cruise apparition. I don't know what to call the Seth character. I don't know what to call it yet. I don't know what's happening, because part of me is like, is she also losing her mind? Was this really a flashback? Because the treatment room that she had been going to in a dreamlike way, because I still don't even know how much of that is real. She goes to this place and they keep putting stuff on her face. So I'm like, are they drugging her in some way? Is she hallucinating? I don't know yet. And I was getting really frustrated. And then I had a conversation with a friend of mine who has read a bunch of Mona Awad's books. And she said all of her books are like that. It's very out there, and they seem dreamlike, and you don't know what's going on. And in talking to her, I remembered seeing a film from David Lynch called Mulholland Drive. And when I first went to this film, I hated this movie. I thought it was just too confusing. I had no idea what was going on, but it stuck with me. I couldn't stop thinking about this film. And so much so that I had to see it again. I thought, okay, maybe I need to see it again to really understand, because some of the themes and imagery in that movie just kept, coming to mind. And I felt like I had to see it again. And when I saw it again, I just became obsessed with this film and thought, okay, it's really trying to say a lot more than I realized it was saying. And there's a lot of metaphors and things that it was saying about Hollywood and the life at Hollywood and how it sucks people in. And there's a lot of behind the scenes things that are going on. And I started to think, okay, maybe that's what's happening with this book, that she is using metaphors and she is trying to show more than what I'm getting. So I'm trying to pay more attention because of that. I didn't want to just dismiss it and say, okay, I have no idea what's going on, and because I was starting to drag through it. So I feel like I have a better frame of mind going into the rest of this book, and I'm hoping that I feel differently by the end of it, and we'll see. So I probably won't make a video until the very end, and then we'll see how I feel about it. So after reading about the roses that Belle does for something I'm not going to give away because it would be a spoiler, made me realize I have to get new plants, so I'm going to go get flowers. So I just showed you my flowers that I had to throw away, and I especially was thinking about the scene with Belle, and I don't want to give away any spoilers. But she has to pick some rose petals, and it made me think about the dead plant I had sitting on my porch, and I want to go get some flowers, but it is like 95 degrees outside. I also wanted to do something that had something to do with Rouge as well, and I just kept thinking about all the advertising that's done for women with makeup, especially in magazines. So I haven't picked up a women's magazine in a while, and I was just curious if I picked one up, how many ads. I remember reading somewhere or talking with someone before that they said the first so many pages have nothing to do but be about beauty advertising and things for women to buy, instead of any articles or anything that was actually for them. And I'm curious, I was going to pick up a magazine and flip through it because it has everything to do with this book that I just read. And I just want to show that for the vlog. So here we go.
I finished reading Rouge by Mona Awad, and I've had a lot of time to think about this book. I've talked to Jen about this book. I've researched some things about this book. This book really sent me down a rabbit hole, and I'm still not sure what to think about it. So let's get into it. The cover, let's talk about the cover. I really like the cover. I like it more now that I've read the book, but this is the vibe of the book. It's dark, it's mysterious, it's a little odd, and you have a rose, which is part of the story, and instead of petals, you have a red jellyfish, which is also part of the story. And I just realized, I just thought of this actually, and this is what this book does. It gets my brain just going like crazy. Both the rose and the jellyfish are linked to Mirabelle's mother in some way. So maybe the author's trying to say something there, I'm not sure. So you're following Mirabelle, and the story jumps back and forth between her adult life, where her mother has passed away, and a childhood with her mother. She lives with her mother and grandmother in Ontario, and her father has passed away, and I don't think the book ever says why or how he passed away, but anyways, he's not there, and so it's just her mother and grandmother raising her. Her mom was just very into herself, and so, like, for example, in the beginning of the book, Mirabelle is a little girl, and she goes by Belle when she's a girl, and she wants her mom to read her a bedtime story. She always wants to hear the story of Snow White, and her mom has it memorized because her mom reads to her every night. But while her mom is telling her the story, you know, she's not what you would picture sitting there, you know, holding Belle in her lap and reading her the story or reciting her the story or, you know, tucking her in bed. She's reciting the story, but she's looking in the mirror and brushing her own hair. So that, I think, is kind of how Belle grew up. Like, she had a loving mother, but her mother was really focused more on what her wants and needs and what she wanted to do and her appearance. Her mother wants to be a movie star, so she is very much into the way she looks, doing the face creams. She dates lots of different guys. Her mom finally meets a guy that convinces her to move to San Diego to try to get her into the movie industry in California. So they move to San Diego, and Mirabelle lives with her mom for most of her childhood there. There was an instance that happened, and I'm not going to spoil any of that for you because that is part of the book that you find out later, but she ends up moving back to Ontario to take care of her older grandma, and then she stays there well into adulthood, separated from her mother. Mirabelle's mom dies, and it's kind of a mysterious death. The detectives rule it a accidental suicide. I think you saw, but initially I was thinking, oh, she killed herself because she couldn't handle getting older and getting wrinkles, and she just decided to end it. So that was one of my theories going into this, and I'm not going to tell you if that's right or not. You'll just have to read the book. But she dies, and that brings Mirabelle back to San Diego to kind of settle her affairs, take care of her condo. As an adult, Mirabelle has kind of followed the path of her mother. She has a whole bunch of face creams. I mean, when she packs to go from Ontario to San Diego to take care of her mom's affairs, she literally packs hardly any clothes but 7 bags of face creams. She's got creams and lotions and oils and scrubs and serums and exfoliators and gold dusted this and diamond infused that and acids that she puts on her face. I mean, she's got everything. Like, you could probably buy a house with as much money as she's spent on some of these creams and serums and things for her face to make herself look and feel beautiful. One night she is in her mom's closet going through her things, and she finds these pair of red shoes, and she puts them on, and these red shoes guide her to a mansion on the ocean cliffside, and the mansion's name is Rouge. And that's where the story kind of tailspins, and you could take the story in so many different directions. I've done a lot of research, a lot of thinking about the story. I'm a pretty analytical person. I'm more left-brained. I am an engineer, so I really love to figure things out and know what makes things work and understand completely the meaning. I don't like books that leave open endings. Unless they're part of a series and the series continues on. So it really kind of drove me nuts trying to figure out this book and what everything in it means. And I think it would be helpful to know that the author is half Egyptian, and she does sort of reference some ancient Egyptian symbols or meanings and things. For example, Mirabelle, when she's a child, she has this little bracelet that's the Eye of Horus on it, and her mother has told her that's her father looking over her. And I looked up, Jen and I both actually looked up, because we had a discussion about this book. I looked up the meaning of the Eye of Horus, and in ancient Egyptian times it meant protection. So there's things like that in the book that I think could be interpreted different ways, and I think it's up to each individual person to decide what that means for them. And I want to leave it at that. I don't really want to, I mean, I can, but I don't really want to go into my interpretation of everything, because I think that's the fun of this book, and I have comfortably settled on the fact that you can read into this book and it can mean a million different things to you, and there could be a bunch of symbols for everything, from the house to the jellyfish to the jewelry to the people, the names of people. Even in the books there is a figure that comes through the mirror, which again is interpretive. Actually, his name ends up being Seth, and we looked up, and Seth actually has a meaning in ancient Egyptian. So there's just, you could spend a lot of time digging into this book, and I would love to spend an hour with Mona Awad and just ask her questions about this book. But I believe the main message she wants to get across is that this quest for beauty and preserving usefulness, you can really lose yourself. And in her mother's case, it may have killed her, but you can really lose yourself, and it's important for you to break free of that, not fall victim to the mental thinking of you have to look a certain way, you have to present yourself a certain way, you have to have a certain color of hair, you have to wear a certain makeup, you have to, buy certain creams. And I think this story is sort of trying to say that just be comfortable in your own skin. Don't let the beauty industry and the things you see in magazines and the things you hear on commercial control your view of yourself. So that is my take on the book, and that's what I want to share with you. Read the book, and please let me know what you think. If you, think the house represents something, the Rouge mansion represents something, the people inside it. I am very, very curious about this book. I really want to know what other people think. My opinions have changed a lot after just discussing this book with Jen and doing research. So, it's just one of those books that it's going to stay with me, and it kind of mentally drained me for a day or two. So, time to read a fun little book, because this one has just gotten in my head and taken me down this unexpected rabbit hole. And I'm probably overthinking it, but please share your opinions if you've read this book. When it comes out, please let me know. I have an email linked in the description, and you can always comment on the video.
Hello and welcome to the Rouge review. And I felt the need to include the flowers doing my review. As you guys saw, I had to get more flowers. There's a scene in Rouge that reminded me of the dead plant on my porch, and I had to go get it. Not that I wanted, the scene that I'm talking about is her stealing roses from her neighbor, And what she does with the roses, not going to say because it's a spoiler, but that was not why I had thought of getting any kind of flowers, and especially roses. But these are just so gorgeous. I found these in the purple ones that are still on my porch, as you guys saw in the video. But let's get to the reason why I'm here, which is Rouge. I really wanted to like this book because I've heard so much about Mona Awad from Bunny, and I still do want to read Bunny. I don't want to base it just on this book. But I ended up, as you guys saw from the videos, I was confused for most of it. And I even sat 2-3 days after reading it before I made this video just to marinate in what I read, just in case I change my mind or change my opinion. But I just didn't love it. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. And there were a lot of themes in here that obviously I agree with, and I agree with her kind of digging at the beauty industry and the way women are made to feel like they have to stay forever young and use all kinds of, lotions and makeup and treatments in order to look a certain way so that people in society see us the way they want to see us. And I love that she dug at that. It's just, I don't know if it was just me in terms of how I was reading this book, but I was just really confused. And I don't know. It wasn't a book for me. But let's dig into a little more through the story. So you guys saw all the thoughts that as I read up to like the last 100 pages, and the rest of it was even, I would say, even more confusing at the end. I still don't know entirely what to think of the end. And I don't know how much I want to say because of spoilers either. The basic story here isn't even just about the beauty industry, but at the heart of it, I felt, was the relationship with Belle and her mother, and how maybe even mothers and daughters in general, how that relationship can be influenced by how women are seen in society, and how beauty is a big part of that. And I'm trying to say this without giving away spoilers with Belle and her mother, and I know a lot of mothers and daughters have like that love-hate relationship. I think in the teens, a lot of daughters end up rebelling against their mothers. Not all. I mean, I know there's definitely women out there that feel like they get along very well with their mom and never really had any kind of conflict. But through the friends that I know, and through, I think my relationship with my mother is very different. I wouldn't be able to necessarily compare it. But I feel like this one was an extreme. Like what happens with Belle and her mom, and we're seeing it from Belle's perspective. It just seemed very volatile and how do I want to say this without giving a spoiler? And I feel like there's redemption in the end. I feel like because she has to go to California after her mother passes and she's dealing with that death, I think a lot of this could be her processing her grief, and not just about what's happening with Rouge, which is the glass building on the cliff that she keeps finding herself at, getting treatments, beauty treatments, I guess. But there's some nefarious force there that's the part that I completely still don't understand. It just seemed very dreamlike. I don't even know if it was meant to be real, if Belle was just processing grief and this was all her imagination. Those are all questions. And anytime a book does that, I do feel that there's something there. Like, that's a good book if it's really making you think. But it almost hurt my head trying to figure out what's going on. Like, I was so, like, I had to put it down a couple times because I was like, I don't know what's going on. And I know I said in a previous video that it reminded me of when I saw Mulholland Drive by David Lynch, but it's very true, where, and I know a movie is very different from a book because you're sitting for 2 hours watching it and then you leave and process it. But this is like, it was several days that I got through reading this, and there were a couple times where I didn't really want to pick it back up because I was like, I don't even know what's happening. So I think going back to the mother-daughter aspect, I feel like that was a huge message in this book. It wasn't just about beauty. And I did feel compelled after reading this, though, that the beauty part of it, and I know that on the back in the description and some of the early reviews that I had seen about this, it seemed like the author was trying to have a bigger message on the beauty industry. And it made me think about that's why I included footage of all the aisles of makeup and beauty products that are geared towards women. And do you see that for men? No. And I do think, like, even now, as much as things kind of have progressed through history for women to be a little better, maybe. I don't know. Some days I feel like it is. Some days I feel like it's not. And what's funny is in the middle of this, not the middle. I had just finished the book when I went to see Barbie with my friend Melissa. It made me think of it. And I almost included footage because we had gone to see Barbie, and it was thinking like, what coincidence in terms of timing, because the Barbie image has been controversial over the years with the image, and that one I think was more about size. I think Barbie and size, and there's still like a beauty ideal with Barbie, and the movie I felt kind of portrayed or spoke to that. I don't even know how much it really dealt with the sizing issue, with how women are always expected to be a certain size. There were a couple comments in that movie about it, but it made me think like all of this all at once, like all of this is tied to what this book is trying to talk about. And I really wish I would have loved it more. I wish I wasn't as lost as I was. And it could be just like the Mulholland Drive, where it took me a lot of time to marinate and then I went back to it. This may be a book that sticks with me so much that I end up thinking differently about it or want to go back to it and read it again. I don't know. We'll see. It's only been 3 days, I think, since I finished it. And I ended up giving it 3 stars. But it was hard for me because I just wanted it to give it a better rating, because the messages, in my opinion, are so important. But I was basing that rating clearly on how it felt to read it. And she is a great writer. I mean, I do feel like the writing was great, but I feel that it was just really difficult to get through. As much as I kept hoping until the end that it was just going to get better, or the ending was just going to turn, because there have been books where I was like, I don't know, and then the ending just like, is wonderful and beautiful, and it made me love the book so much. So unfortunately, I don't really love it, but if you are into a book where it's something that it's really going to be your interpretation, and you want to figure out what it means to you, and the themes throughout it are, I know, grieving a loss, mothers and daughters, and images of women and how women are seen, especially when it comes to the beauty ideal and what women have to do in order to feel better about themselves, or project a certain look that everyone wants them to look like. If those are themes that you love, then this is the book for you. This is something that I think you will love, and you will have your own interpretation about it. Unfortunately, I just didn't love it. But that is my thoughts on Rouge, and until next time.